Our next guest is from Australia. She is Karine Shellshear. She comes from a background of social research, planning, policy and community development, an advocate of social justice. She has a Master's of Philosophy in Housing. She has been a teacher in higher education and was president of Australasian Association of Yoga Therapy. She is trained in the tradition of Krishnacharya and remains a student of Dr. N. Chandrasekhan and Saraswati Vasudevan. She presented a paper on the use of chakras in yoga therapy at the International Yoga Therapy Conference in Japan in 2018. She's teaching synchronized breath focused yoga, incorporating guidance for a calm mind, strengthening and revitalizing the body and restoring the whole system.
Greetings. I'm speaking to you from Sydney, Australia, and in particular from the land of the Indigenous Aboriginal people, the Gadigal land of the Eora clan, and on whose land we stand. My talk is about desire and spirituality, quite a challenging talk. And first of all, I'd like to pay my regards to Ariong, and I'm sorry the presentation had not worked. And I'd also like to pay my regards to the United Consciousness Network and to the talk by Dr. Anandaji, who is always quite formidable in his presentations. So I'm very honored to be speaking with United Consciousness. My talk is about spirituality and desire. And I took that to understanding the human spirit for wholeness. And I'm wondering if we could, if we can put on the presentation. I hope there isn't a problem with the presentation. Thank you. And if we can move to the slide. First slide, please. Next slide. I looked at some definitions, and of course, what we understand by desire is the things that you would expect, and that is craving, longing, yearning, aching or pining. And it suggests feelings that impel one to the attainment or possession of something. Desires can also be either positive in the sense that the subject wants a desirable state to be the case, attraction to something, or negative in the sense that the subject wants an undesirable state not to be the state, not to be the case, aversion. Next slide, please. What drives desire? Desire isn't necessarily a bad thing. Initially, it's desire that drives our instincts for survival. And it's the same as the ego. The ego has to have that sense of drive, of motivation. And it drives our senses. Our senses relay the need to satiate, thirst, hunger, warmth, comfort, to be loved, to be nourished, sheltered and cared for. From the moment we're born, our mind is absorbing messages from the five senses: taste, sound, sight, touch and smell, things that are pleasant and things that are unpleasant. So at an early age, we begin to attune ourselves to the experiences we want more of and those we want less of. And of course, we are being judged as well. We are getting pleasant feedback and unpleasant feedback, judgment from others, from our peers and from our parents and from society as to who and how we should be. Next, please. How we perceive ourselves in the world motivates our desires. Desire, as I said, isn't necessarily a bad thing. We strive for growth. We strive for knowledge, for truth, beauty, harmony. We have a desire for improving the human condition and our own sense of self-actualization. Experiences of what give pleasure or pain form our reality. And we are also influenced by the trigunas. So we have the rajas, which is activating, moving things, speeding things up, and we need that. And then we have the rajas, the tamas, which is that inertia, which paralyzes us sometimes, which slows us down. And we have sattva. The other thing is that we have in Samkhya philosophy, there is the notion of unconscious patterns. These are identified as our samskaras, or even deeper, the vasanas, that color our perceptions. And so we're influenced by a whole range of things that are going to place a lens and cloud our perception of reality. A great philosopher, Baruch Spinoza, who lived in the 18th century, stated that we need not suppress our desires. What we need is that awareness, and it's the awareness to reflect on how desires are linked to the unconscious, how they're linked to unconscious patterns and their repetition in reinforcing perceptions. Next, please. Avidya, or ignorance, is seen as the root cause of the obstacles that prevent us from seeing how things really are. So we encounter the obstacles, and there are 4 branches there are 4 branches of ignorance that prevent us from seeing. And the first one is the ego. The ego, instead of us looking inward at who we are, we look outward. We look at the reflections that we're getting from others, at what other people think of us, or we compare ourselves to others. They become our benchmark, and we see ourselves as either superior to or inferior from others. Then we have raga, which is desire. We want to be as good as they are. We want what they have. They tell us they have 2 cars, we want 2 cars. And raga is that element that makes demands on us. We want something today that was pleasant yesterday, not because we need it today, but because we are propelled to repetition, to repeat what was pleasant. And so we have this drive to desire what we think will bring us that pleasant experience. Dvesha is very much the opposite. We push away experiences, we push away people, we push away things that we believe will cause us pain. We don't want to experience that pain. We have an aversion because of the presumption of discomfort. And then there is abhinivesha, the branch of fear. We have doubts about things. We have doubts about ourselves, our position in life, whether people will judge us negatively. And this sense of fear which underlies all the experiences of ignorance, this also drives our desires. We want to attain things because we think in the outer world it will bring us power, it will bring us respect, it will bring us a better person of ourselves. And instead of looking inward, we look outward at the things that mold us and form our samskaras. Next, please. The role of fear. I'd just like to have a good look at that role of fear because it's so important. Avidya is derived from repetitive patterns within the subconscious. So we don't actually see what's happening, and these prevent us from recognizing things as they really are. We have enough, yet we desire more. We fear losing what we have, not getting enough of what we crave, what we think will make us safe, secure, comfortable, happy, in comparison to our benchmark, others. Others are our benchmark. And so we crave. And you saw during COVID, people were doing crazy things for fear of not getting enough. They were going and buying masses of toilet paper because they thought they wouldn't have enough. And they didn't really care about how they affected the next person. This fear and craving. It was a very good way to see what motivates us. When the processing mind, the ahamkara, identifies with unconscious patterns of asmita, of the ego, then we react with fear of loss that might trigger craving, thirst, or attachment, or aversion to avoid pain. And we still end up feeling inadequate, never enough. It creates a vicious cycle. In a consumer market, productivity actually thrives on our insatiable fear of lack, wanting to be seen as better, valued, respected, etc., wanting to be seen as having the best washing machine or the best dryer. We're told that we're lacking something, that this thing will fill in that void, that this thing will make us a better person, accepted in society, will belong to these people if we have the best washing machine, the best car, the best house. There's a magazine that was called Better Homes and Gardens, and a cynical retake on that was Better Homes Than Yours. And that's what it's about. We want to be better than, and we're driven in a way that doesn't really serve our true self, our true evolution. Next slide, please. We seek out also the repetition of positive experiences. The mind processes experiences, seeking to positively reinforce our idea of what gives us pleasure. It's simply an idea that this person, if we're with this person, we will be whole, we will be joyful, we will have pleasure from this person that we want to attach ourselves with. And we dispel those causes of suffering that and how we see ourselves in the world. We act and react according to our sometimes faulty perceptions because they have the lens of the samskaras, the lens of these obstacles that embed themselves, the obstacles of our previous experiences that we misconstrue and judge by, and also our distorted memories. The outside locus of reality is therefore easily clouded in what it brings to us as reality. Next slide, please. Objects of desire, next slide, please. Objects of desire do not satiate the spirit. The pursuit of objects in the external world, it can never define who we really are. And yet the trend in our society is to feel a sense of lack when we do not have abundant wealth, when we don't have beauty, when we don't have fame, possessions of objects, or when we don't have power over people to make us feel superior, or supposedly to make us feel happy. But the attainment of such desires are limited. As soon as we have this object or that object, we actually forget about it and we want more. It doesn't satiate us. And the influence of asmita, of the ego, impels us to desire more, something newer, bigger, better, finer, to fill the void that is created by our delusion. Next slide, please. Over 1,000 years ago, in ancient Greek history, Plato noted that we were losing ourselves in terrestrial, worldly desires. And we have an infinite thirst that is innately divine, but we've lost our link to the wonderment of the cosmos. Uncontrollable now, overconsumption has led to an ecological crisis. Our insatiable desire for more stuff on the gross plane is sadly destroying the planet. Dissatisfaction, mental illness, imbalance permeates our world as we endlessly grasp at enhancing our possessions and using up precious resources and creating unending waste. But that drive, that desire, has forgotten how to look inward. Next slide, please. The beauty of our yoga, our wonderful yoga understanding of the ancient rishis, is that it decreases the impacts, the effects of avidya, of ignorance, so that true understanding can take place. According to TKV Desikachar, when we see something correctly, there is profound peace inside of us. We feel no tension, no unrest, no agitation. There is a spring from which quietness comes, and vidya, or clear understanding, is found within me. Quietness and calmness deep within. Next. Aligning with who we are means understanding that everything is in constant flux. Parinama avada, and is that sense of everything in movement. And yet there's a part of us that remains constant. Our awareness remains a constancy. Through regular yoga practice, we can learn to stay present in every moment and achieve what we were previously unable to achieve. Our yoga practice allows for unhampered seeing. We tap the power of Purusha that enables us to perceive accurately. Now, why I mention this is that This accurate perception allows us to transmute that drive for that desire from outside to inside. Yoga gradually changes the body-mind patterns of perception, bringing less cloudiness and more clarity. And we realize that desire can be turned inwardly to strive for self-actualization, to strive for betterment of the human species. Next slide, please. Yoga enables our striving for self-fulfillment through, as Dr. Ananda mentioned, through tapas, svadhyaya, ishvara pranidhana. And the tapas is expressed in terms of cleansing, of heat, derived from the practice of asana and pranayama. We keep healthy, cleanse inwardly. And then svadhyaya, we are able to reflect on ourselves. We are able to study and analyze and see the patterns that are happening within, to look at our mental processes, how they affect us and how we impact on others. Ishvara pranidhana is that gracious act of surrender to a quality of action in understanding something greater than ourselves, a state of reverence for what is all around us, for what permeates everything, including ourselves. Next slide, please. The inward journey of yoga transforms us to become the best possible expression of who and what we are. As mind and body quieten down, that which is no longer relevant is released. We are able to release those samskaras, those obstacles within the samskaras that cloud our perception. We're able to release old patterns in the nervous system. And the state of supreme and complete fulfillment comes from that inner contemplation, from finding quietness within and finding that wholeness of spirit that was missing when our desire was directed to the outward world of craving for more and more insatiable craving. When we turn inward and quieten the mind and look deeply, that's where our truth lies. Our desire becomes a transformative tool. Next slide, please. So desire can actually be used in a very positive sense as a vehicle for self-transformation. So we move from that impetus from surviving, living, being, experiencing, touching, sensing, thriving, procreating, and later wanting, craving, seeking to possess, to be accepted, approved of, belonging, needing to be wanted, wanting more, becoming insatiable when born of ignorance. Yoga brings us back home, gives us that lucidity to understand the values of the spirit. It brings us back to clarity, to unity. It unclouds the obscurity of our perceptions. It takes us on the inward journey of self-exploration, a journey of gratitude for what we have, when we understand what we have and the wonderment of the miracle of what simply is in our connection to nature and to the divine. Next. Oops. Yoga is in essence.
I'm sorry to disturb, but I'm afraid that
Time is
time.
up.
Yeah, yes, it is 10 minutes over the regular time, but I'll
Oh,
request
my
you to, if you
apologies.
can. Yes, no worries.
I'll just finish off in saying that act of moving towards moksha, towards liberation, is that desire can be used as that tool. And finally, I just wanted to thank you for having me, and thank you to the team of United Consciousness.
Thank you very much, Karinji. At times, it feels like that 15 minutes is really injustice with the audience and the speakers also. And many times we feel like listening all the more. Maybe God given some other opportunity to listen you in much detail. Thank you very much for your time, and so nicely for everybody's understanding. You said that desires are not necessarily bad. We should invert our desire for self actualization. That is most important. You connected so well West and Eastern philosophies together to give it a comprehensive view. You quoted Plato, you quoted TKV, Deshikacharji, and lots many things. So it was really very enlightening. Thank you very much for being here with us. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks.
On behalf of United Consciousness, I thank Ms. Karine Shellshear for coming onto the platform of United Consciousness. Thank you so much.